Hi there, and welcome to Reddit Confessions. Buckle in, because I'm about to tell you how one sentence turned my entire life into a slow-burning disaster I never saw coming. It started not with a fight, not with suspicion, not even with a message or a missing ring. It started with leftovers. Yes, you heard that right. There were some grilled chicken legs in the fridge. I made them 2 nights before. Thought we'd eat them together, like we usually did on Thursdays when she got home late from work. But when I opened the fridge around 6 p.m., they were gone. Not even a crumb. And no note. No, I took them for lunch. No, I was hungry earlier. Nothing. That's when I noticed her wedding band on the counter. Just sitting there. On top of a grocery receipt. Like it was a tip she left behind. I didn't panic. Not yet. I told myself, maybe she's showering. Maybe she's tired. Maybe she's just being forgetful. But then she walked into the kitchen, heels already on, perfume way too expensive for a dinner with friends, and said it. I'm heading out this evening. No smile. No explanation. Just that. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't even ask where. All I said was, if you walk out that door, don't come back. And she laughed. Not nervously. Not kindly. She laughed like I just told her a joke she didn't think I was smart enough to make. Then she looked me in the eye, smirked, and replied, "You'll regret that, Winston." Winston. That's me. 39 years old. Spends Sundays rearranging bookshelves and labeling wires in the garage. The kind of guy who checks the tire pressure before road trips and cries when dogs die in movies. She opened the door, walked out, never looked back. I stood there for 10 minutes, still holding the empty Tupperware that should have had chicken in it. And that's when my phone vibrated. Not once, but 3 times. 3 messages. 3 different numbers. And each one started with the same 2 words. She's here. The first message hit me like a slap I didn't see coming. She's here. That was it. No name. No context. Just those 2 words from an unknown number. My hands started shaking. I stared at it for a full minute, hoping maybe it was a mistake. Maybe they meant to text someone else. But before I could even process it, the second message came through. She's safe. Don't worry. Safe. I hadn't asked. Why were they telling me she was safe unless there was something to worry about? Then came the third message, the one that made my stomach twist like I'd swallowed a fistful of gravel. Don't wait up. I dropped the phone. Literally dropped it. It hit the kitchen tile with a thud that felt way too loud in a house that suddenly didn't feel like mine anymore. My legs buckled. I sat on the floor next to the fridge, staring at the space where her shoes should have been. I didn't even cry. I just kept hearing her voice in my head. You'll regret that, Winston. It wasn't just the way she said it. It was how sure she was. Like she'd already planned the next 10 steps of her life without me. Like I was the one who hadn't caught up. I don't remember getting off the floor. I don't remember brushing my teeth or turning off the lights. All I know is that I woke up at 3:12 a.m. on the couch with my phone buzzing again. It was a voice message this time, from the same number that said she was safe. I hesitated. I shouldn't have played it. I knew I shouldn't have, but I did. And I heard her, laughing. In the background of the recording, I could hear music, low, pulsing bass. The kind of music people dance to in dimly lit rooms where nobody wears wedding rings. Then, just before the clip ended, I heard her say something that made my skin go cold. He actually told me not to come back. Isn't that adorable? Then silence. That word, adorable, echoed louder than the bass. I wanted to scream, to throw something, but all I did was sit there and stare at the carpet. I started counting the fibers like they were keeping me tethered to reality. I even started whispering her name like she'd magically appear if I said it enough times. Lorna, Lorna, Lorna. But she didn't appear. Instead, I got a call. Not a text. A call. From my neighbor, Mrs. Tisdale. She's 71, runs the neighborhood watch like it's the FBI. She never calls unless a mailbox gets hit or someone parks too close to her driveway. But that night, at 3:22 in the morning, she called to tell me something she thought I should know. Apparently, a black SUV had pulled into our driveway just after midnight. Stayed there for a minute or two, then backed out and left. She thought maybe it was a rideshare, but it didn't have any decals or logos. And she said she could have sworn she saw a man in the passenger seat. A man. In our driveway. After midnight. While I was passed out on the couch, reeling from her laugh. I told her thank you and hung up, my brain suddenly racing with images I didn't want. I ran to check our security camera, but of course, The battery had died sometime earlier that day. I stared at the blinking red light like it was mocking me. Everything felt like it was falling apart. Not in some dramatic, movie-style collapse. It was quieter than that. Slower. More like water leaking under the floorboards, warping everything before you even notice. By morning, I was a mess. I hadn't slept. I hadn't eaten. The only thing I'd done was check my phone over and over, hoping the next message would be an apology. A mistake. Something. But instead, I got one more message. No words. Just a photo. Of her. In that silk dress. Sitting on a stranger's lap. Grinning like she had just won the lottery. And in the corner of the photo, his hand. On her thigh. There are certain images your brain doesn't know how to process right away. It's like staring at a photo that doesn't quite load all the way. Pixels you don't want to make sense of. That's what it felt like when I saw it. My wife. My Lorna. Draped across some man's lap, like she didn't just walk out on a decade of marriage. Her lips curled into a smirk I hadn't seen in months. Her body language screamed possession, not hers. His. But it wasn't just the image that shattered me. It was the hand. His hand. Resting on her thigh like he'd done it 100 times before. Like it belonged there. And then my stomach dropped. Because I recognized that hand. The bracelet on his wrist. The scar running across his knuckle. The way his thumb curled inward ever so slightly from an old basketball injury. That wasn't a stranger. That was Silas. My cousin. The same cousin who helped me fix our broken deck last summer. The one who gave a toast at our wedding. The guy who asked me to be the godfather of his kid 2 years ago. That was the moment everything cracked. Not split. Not snapped. Cracked. Like a windshield spidering from one small rock you didn't see coming. I dropped the phone. Again. I don't know why I kept doing that. Maybe some part of me wanted it to break. Wanted it to shatter like I was shattering. I just sat there on the edge of the couch, staring at the floor like the answers were going to spell themselves out in the grain of the hardwood. It didn't feel real. I kept whispering, no, it's not him, no way. But every time I closed my eyes, that scar was still there. That damn bracelet I gave him on his birthday. The one with the engraved compass that said, wherever you are, we're family. Turns out he took that literally. It all started making sense. Lorna had started hanging around his place more often, claiming she was helping his wife with some charity project. She said they were planning a fundraiser. That she was mentoring his teenage niece with college applications. I didn't think anything of it. Why would I? It was family. I remember one night when she came back late from Silas's house, smelling like gin and bonfire. She was giddy, loose. She wrapped her arms around me and whispered, "You're too good for me, Winston." I thought she meant it. I thought it was affection. Now I know it was guilt. And the worst part? I think she meant it. I think she really did believe I was too good for her, which made it easier for her to lie to my face, to pretend, to use my trust like a doormat while she rolled around in someone else's arms, someone I trusted with my life. I didn't sleep again. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw them. Together. Laughing. Tangled up in sheets I probably helped carry into his guest bedroom. By the third day, I was a ghost in my own house. The dogs wouldn't even come near me. They could sense it. Something was broken. Then came the email. Subject line. Let's talk, before you do something stupid. No name. Just that. Inside was a short message. I know what you saw. I know it looks bad. It's not what you think. Please, can we meet? I'll explain everything. Just don't tell his wife. Please. No signature. But I didn't need one. Because I knew that tone. I'd read it in 100 texts before. I'd heard it in every fake apology she ever gave me. It was her. Still trying to control the narrative. Still trying to soften the landing before the crash. Still protecting him. I didn't reply. I just stared at the blinking cursor on the screen for hours. And then I made a decision. If she wanted to talk, if she wanted to explain, I was going to give her that chance. But not where she expected. I booked a reservation for 3 people. At our favorite restaurant. The one where we celebrated our 5th anniversary. I invited her. I invited Silas. And I invited his wife. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to fight. I was going to let the truth sit in the middle of the table. With the wine. And the appetizers. And every ounce of betrayal they thought they could hide. The reservation was for 7 p.m. sharp at Ashton's, the upscale place with too many forks and not enough light. Lorna always said it made her feel fancy but grounded. We hadn't been back there in years, not since our 5th anniversary when I gave her that silver necklace with the tiny letter W engraved on the charm. The one she said she never took off. Funny, I hadn't seen it in months. That evening, I wore the same blazer I wore to that anniversary dinner. Not for nostalgia, more like armor. I didn't recognize the man in the mirror. Eyes hollowed, skin pale, mouth twitching like it wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. I got to the restaurant 10 minutes early. The hostess offered to seat me, but I asked to wait until my entire party arrived. She smiled like she thought I was hosting a family reunion. If only. I ordered water. Couldn't stomach wine. Couldn't stomach anything, really. My hands trembled each time I checked the time on my phone. At 6:57, I saw a black car pull up. Lorna stepped out, alone. She walked in like she didn't have a care in the world, wearing that same silk dress from the photo. The one she'd worn while sitting on Silas's lap. I guess she thought it would work some kind of spell on me, like her charm could glue the pieces of me back together. She spotted me, gave a nervous smile, and walked over slowly, like someone approaching a sleeping dog they'd kicked too many times. "Winston," she said softly, brushing her hair behind her ear. "Thank you for agreeing to talk." "I'm not the only one you'll be talking to," I replied, standing up. She blinked. "What do you mean?" And just then, Silas walked in. He paused when he saw her. Then he saw me. Then his eyes darted to the third woman entering the restaurant behind him, his wife, Elena. Elena looked stunning. Not in the way Lorna did, with intentional seduction and curated softness. Elena looked like someone who'd just had the truth dragged out from under her feet and chose to show up anyway. The hostess looked confused when I gestured that all four of us were together. I think I saw her mouth, "Yikes," as she led us to the table. No one spoke as we sat down. The silence was radioactive. Lorna kept glancing between me and Silas. Silas didn't meet anyone's eyes. Elena sat as if someone had nailed her spine to the back of the chair, rigid, silent, seething. The waiter came by. No one ordered. He wisely retreated. Finally, I broke the silence. I thought we'd all benefit from hearing the truth. Together. Lorna's face tightened. "Winston, please. No. No more please. No more half-truths. No more controlling the narrative. You walked out. You sent me messages from strangers. And you let him," I said, pointing at Silas, "sit in my place, both figuratively and literally." Silas opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Elena turned to him, slow and deliberate. "How long?" He choked out. "Elena, How long?" she repeated, voice calm and terrifying. Lorna's hand twitched, her voice barely audible. "Almost a year." Elena's head nodded once. No tears. Just silence that screamed louder than anything I'd ever heard. I looked at Lorna. "You made me feel like I was losing my mind. Like I was boring. Like I wasn't enough. You made me question my worth." Lorna leaned forward, her voice suddenly sharper. "You were always so passive, Winston. So soft. I needed to feel alive again." Silas shifted uncomfortably. Elena stared at her wine glass like she was contemplating breaking it across someone's face. I nodded. "Soft. That's the word you used, huh? You know, you used to call me your safe space. You begged for stability. You wanted peace. You chose me. And then," I said, lowering my voice, "you threw that all away because you wanted fireworks again. But you didn't light fireworks, Lorna. You lit a fuse." I turned to Elena. "I'm sorry you had to find out this way. You deserved more." Elena finally looked at me and said, "No, I'm glad I did. It's the first honest night I've had in years." We sat there for what felt like forever. Then, Elena stood up. She reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. Without a word, she took a photo of the three of us, me, Lorna, and Silas. "Evidence," she said coldly, "in case either of you wants to spin a story in court." Then she left. Lorna turned to Silas, eyes wide. "Why would she do that?" I laughed. Actually laughed. A bitter, broken kind of laugh. "Because she's not stupid. And because she won't stay quiet to protect your fantasy." I stood up, tossed a 20 on the table, not for the bill, but for the trouble. And as I walked out, Lorna called after me. "Winston, wait. Please, don't leave like this." I turned back, looked her dead in the eyes. "You left first." And I walked away. I drove in silence. No music. No podcast. Just the hollow hum of my tires against the road and my heartbeat pounding like it didn't know what to do next. My fingers were stiff on the steering wheel, knuckles white. I had walked away from that dinner thinking I'd finally done something brave. Something final. But truth doesn't give you clean exits. It lingers. It follows you home like a shadow. And when I opened the front door of my house, I didn't walk into silence. I walked into a trap. The air felt off, heavy, like it had been stirred recently. The living room light was on, dim, like someone had set a mood. I stepped in cautiously, closed the door behind me, and froze. There were candles lit. Not the ones I light during storms or when I want the place to smell like cinnamon. These were the tall white ones. Ones Lorna used to set out when she wanted to make things right. They were flickering softly on the coffee table, surrounding a bottle of wine. And beside that wine, her necklace. The silver one with the W. It was lying neatly across the edge of the table, like an offering or a warning. I couldn't tell which. I didn't call out for her. I didn't want to. If she was here, I wasn't ready to see her. But then I heard it. Water running upstairs. The shower. She was here. After everything. After the lies, the laugh, the dinner. She had somehow slipped in. Still had a key, of course. Still thought this place was hers. Maybe it was. I didn't know what was mine anymore. I walked slowly upstairs. Each step felt like it weighed more than the last. The bathroom door was closed, steam curling out from the bottom. I didn't knock. I just stood there, staring, unable to decide what to do. Then the door opened, and there she was. Wrapped in a towel, hair wet, eyes wide like she didn't expect to find me standing there. "Winston," she said quietly, clutching the towel tighter. "I thought you'd be out later. Why are you here?" My voice came out low and tired, like it had been fighting wars in my chest for hours. "I didn't know where else to go," she said, stepping into the hallway. "Elena kicked him out. Silas is staying with a friend. I didn't plan this. I just needed to breathe. And this was the only place I've ever felt like I could do that." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was ridiculous. "You felt safe here? In the house of the man you betrayed for nearly a year? You lit the match and then ran back when the fire got too hot." She didn't speak, just looked at me like I was the villain in her story now. "I didn't come back to fight," she whispered. "I came to talk. You didn't let me talk at the restaurant." "I didn't let you lie," I corrected. She sighed, leaning against the wall. "Do you want me to go?" I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I looked at her, really looked. The towel, the wine, the necklace. This wasn't a woman full of regret. This was a woman who thought damage could be undone with charm and tears. "No," I finally said. "I want you to listen." She nodded slowly, eyes still damp from the steam or maybe tears. I couldn't tell anymore. "I want you to listen to what it felt like to doubt everything I believed in. To watch you leave and tell myself not to chase you. I want you to hear what it's like to feel pathetic in your own home. To be so spineless you check the door 10 times at night, not because you're scared of strangers, but because you're scared of what's already inside." Lorna looked down, but I wasn't done. "I trusted you, Lorna. Completely. I didn't even lock my phone because I didn't think I needed to. I let you into my insecurities, my flaws, my quiet little corners, and you stomped through them with someone else's footprints." Silence, thick enough to choke on. Then she whispered, "I made a mistake." "No," I said sharply. "You made a choice. A mistake is forgetting to text back. A mistake is burning dinner. What you did was premeditated, Lorna. Over and over. You chose him. You chose that life." She stepped toward me then, her voice cracking. "I miss you. I didn't realize how much until I lost you. Then maybe you should feel what that's like a little longer." And I walked downstairs. I didn't sleep in our bed that night. I locked the guest room and laid there fully dressed, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything. Her laugh, Silas's face, Elena's silence. The candlelight. The necklace. The sound of running water. The photo. But then, just as I began to doze off near dawn, my phone vibrated again. A new message. From Silas. "You deserve to know something." It wasn't just her. I sat up so fast my back screamed. The message continued. "There's more you don't know. About your wife. About your house. About your job. We need to talk. Alone." When I saw Silas's name light up my phone screen at 6:03 a.m., I didn't hesitate. I didn't sit with the message for hours like before. I didn't question whether it was bait or another manipulation. I simply grabbed my keys and left. Lorna was still asleep upstairs, wrapped in our comforter like she hadn't set our entire life on fire. I didn't even look at her. I just walked out the door and didn't stop until I hit the parking lot of a grimy little diner on Route 27. The kind of place with burnt coffee and a jukebox that hadn't worked since 2004. Silas was already there, sitting in the corner booth near the window, hoodie up, sunglasses on, like he thought someone might recognize him. I wanted to punch him. I truly did. But more than that, I wanted answers. I slid into the booth across from him, not saying a word. Just stared. He took off his sunglasses and looked like hell. Puffy eyes, 3 days of stubble, a grease stain on his hoodie. Not the cocky, smirking version of the man I once considered my closest family. You came, he muttered, looking down at his chipped mug. You said I deserved to know something. Start talking. He nodded, swallowing hard. It wasn't just Lorna. My blood chilled. What does that mean? He sighed, long and heavy, then reached into his bag and pulled out a stack of papers. Folded. Highlighted. Some with red ink. Do you remember when you told me about that company you were consulting for? Neurotech? Yeah, I said slowly, my voice dropping. The one with the prototype for that inventory AI system. He nodded. You left a flash drive at my house last October. Lorna found it in your jacket when she borrowed it one night. I didn't know. She told me later. Said she was curious. Said you never told her anything exciting anymore. So she thought maybe this was a glimpse into your secret life. I blinked. She opened my work files? He looked up, finally meeting my eyes. She didn't just open them. She copied them. My stomach turned so fast I thought I might be sick. You're lying. I'm not. She gave them to her friend. Some guy named Mark. Works at a competitor firm. Lorna thought she was being clever, giving him insight for a favor, some position she wanted at his company. She didn't think it'd be a big deal. She stole from me? I whispered. Technically, from your client. But yeah, and that's not all. He shifted, guilt dripping off every word now. I was at that party a few weeks ago. The one she said was for networking? It wasn't. She was pitching your project, claiming it was hers. She had your notes, your mock-ups, everything. She even called herself the brains behind the operation. People believed her. I stared at him in absolute silence. My skin felt hot. My ears rang. So let me get this straight. My wife was cheating on me, stealing from me, and selling my work behind my back, while using you as the alibi? Silas didn't answer. I stood up, rage swelling in my throat. Why are you telling me this now? He looked up, ashamed. Because I didn't know how far she'd go. I didn't know about the photos until last night. She sent one to my phone by mistake. Said she meant it for Mark. She was bragging. I saw your name in the background, on a report. I realized she'd crossed a line. Multiple lines. And I couldn't live with it anymore. I sat back down slowly. So what? You want redemption? You want me to say thank you for betraying me slightly less than she did? No, he said, eyes rimmed red. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. And to warn you. She's applying for jobs using your portfolio, Winston. She's using your credentials, your work. And if this gets to court, you could be on the hook for corporate theft if you don't speak up first. I leaned back, dizzy. I had been gutted emotionally, but this was the first time I realized she could destroy me professionally too. I could lose everything. My career, my reputation, my ability to work in my field. Silas slid the documents across the table. This is all I could find. Emails. Proposals. A partial contract she submitted. With your name watermarked at the bottom. I took them, my fingers numb. I didn't thank him. I couldn't. I left the diner in a daze, barely noticing the rising sun. Back home, I found Lorna downstairs, casually eating cereal in one of my old hoodies, acting like the last 72 hours hadn't happened. When she saw the papers in my hand, her face dropped. What is that? I didn't say a word. Just dropped them on the table. Watched her skim the top page, her expression unraveling. You went to him? I nodded. You said I'd regret telling you not to come back. But I think you're the one who should start regretting things. You don't understand, she said, voice rising. It wasn't supposed to go that far. Oh, it went way further than an affair, Lorna. You didn't just break vows, you broke the law. Her lip trembled. You're not going to report me, are you? I laughed bitterly. You really still think this is about feelings? About heartbreak? This is my life. You hijacked it. You weaponized my trust. I didn't mean to hurt you. Don't lie. You didn't mean to get caught. I turned around and walked away, leaving her standing there shaking. And in that moment, I knew something had shifted. Something irreversible. Because I wasn't just dealing with a cheating wife anymore. I was dealing with a con artist in my own home. She always kept her laptop on the kitchen counter, right next to the blender she never used, and the cookie jar we both pretended wasn't just a decoration. It was one of those things I never thought twice about. Just another piece of our life, sitting there like furniture. Until that morning. Until Silas dropped the truth on me like a bomb. Until she stood in front of me in that stupid hoodie, looking guilty but not scared enough, like she still believed she had a grip on my spine. After I confronted her and left her stammering in the kitchen, I didn't shout. I didn't threaten. I went upstairs, quietly, calmly, and turned on her laptop. The password? My birthday. Same as it had always been. How poetic. I don't know what I expected. Maybe some browser history. Maybe some poorly hidden messages in her email. But what I found instead was a folder named Blueprints. Inside were documents, dozens of them. Contracts, cover letters, pitch decks, all stamped with logos from companies I'd never even heard of. All written in my style. My formatting. My phrasing. Even my typos. She had been copying my work for years. Rewording it, dressing it up, and submitting it under different names. Sometimes her own. Sometimes aliases. Sometimes collaborative profiles with people I didn't know. The earliest dated back to 2016, a full year before she ever mentioned feeling unfulfilled. 2 years before I even suspected we had drifted apart. We were still happy then, at least I thought we were. We'd gone to Asheville that spring, walked through art galleries, ate funnel cakes in the rain. I remember her kissing me under an awning, laughing as powdered sugar got on my shirt. That same week, she'd submitted one of my full project outlines under a fake name to a company on the East Coast. And they'd hired her. I clicked open a PDF marked confidential. It was an NDA, signed by her, using a completely different name. I dug deeper, found email correspondences, testimonials she'd saved from clients who praised her innovation. People who credited her with solving logistics issues that I had spent nights agonizing over while she sat beside me scrolling through social media. Every click made me sicker. Then I found a folder within the folder, titled simply, Backups. Inside were personal things. Screenshots of my old journals. Drafts of emails I never sent. Voice recordings of me talking to myself about goals, ideas, pain points. My vulnerability, save like she was documenting a lab experiment. I sat there, staring at the screen, fingers trembling. It wasn't just betrayal. It was theft. It was invasion. It was study. She had studied me, dissected me, and used every piece that made me valuable to build a life she never invited me into. And then, buried beneath the other files, one last folder, before W. My chest tightened. Inside were photos, scanned documents, a resume dated 5 months before we even met. But what shattered me completely was the discovery that she had done this before. Another man's work. Another trail of lifted material, stolen designs, ideas passed off as her own. The names were different. The style slightly changed. But it was the same pattern. She found smart, quiet men. Men who didn't bark or question or brag. She mirrored them, then mined them, then moved on. I was just the longest-running experiment. Suddenly, everything clicked. The way she always seemed to intuit what I was working on. The way she always downplayed my ambitions, only to accidentally echo them in her conversations with friends. Her obsession with my passwords. Her need to be in the room when I brainstormed. She hadn't just fallen out of love. She'd never actually loved me. She loved what I could produce. I wasn't a partner. I was a living, breathing fountain of intellectual capital. I closed the laptop slowly and just sat there for a long time, staring at the wall like it owed me something. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I think I had moved beyond that. Numb. Hollow. Like someone had scraped me clean from the inside. Downstairs, I could hear her talking to someone on the phone. Laughing, pretending, probably making plans. She had no idea I'd just peeled back the final layer of her illusion. I walked back down with her laptop in my arms. She looked up from the bar stool, her face tightening. What are you doing with that? I didn't say anything. I opened the front door, walked outside to the patio, placed the laptop on the stone walkway, and smashed it with a hammer. 1, 2, 3. Over and over until plastic, glass, and circuitry were scattered across the pavers like confetti from a party I never agreed to throw. She came running out, shrieking, "Winston, are you insane?" I looked her in the eye for the first time that day. "I finally see you." And with that, I walked back inside. She didn't follow. The thing about letting go is it rarely feels like a victory. It doesn't come with applause or closure or someone shaking your hand and saying, "You did the right thing." No, It feels like silence, like standing at the edge of a cliff and choosing, finally, to stop looking back. After I destroyed the laptop, Lorna didn't speak to me for hours. Not out of guilt, but calculation. She knew the game was over. The truth wasn't a secret anymore. I had all the pieces, all the proof. Her tricks didn't work on me anymore, and I think that scared her more than losing me ever did. I spent the next 48 hours in quiet motion. I contacted a lawyer, filed everything, lock, stock, and betrayal. I forwarded every file Silas had given me to my legal team and to my former client at Neurotech. I told them everything, transparently, honestly, no more hiding, no more protecting the person who would have watched me burn to keep herself warm. And then I packed. Not her things, mine. It hit me while standing in our bedroom folding my socks. How strange it was to leave the house I paid for, the dogs I raised, the life I built. But I wasn't just leaving four walls. I was leaving the version of myself that thought love meant sacrificing everything, even your dignity, for the illusion of forever. By Sunday morning, I was gone. Gone in a way she never expected. No fights. No long goodbye. No final scene. I just left a note. You chose your path. I finally chose mine. I hope one day you look back and feel something. I know I will, but it won't be regret. I moved in with a friend, Gavin. Remember him? The guy Lorna always said was too boring to hang out with. Funny how the people you overlook become the ones who carry you when the floor disappears. Gavin let me crash in his spare room. No questions. No pity. Just quiet companionship, a few too many frozen pizzas, and late-night conversations that reminded me I still existed outside of her shadow. A month passed. Lorna tried calling, texting, even showed up at Gavin's place once, crying in the driveway. I didn't come out. I didn't need to. The version of me that would have crumbled at her tears was gone. Instead, I rebuilt. I reconnected with old clients, honestly this time. I launched my own consulting service under my own name. Within weeks, I had my first real contract, and this time, it was mine. Fully, unapologetically mine. I started running again. Nothing intense, just a couple miles here and there, like I was trying to prove to my body that I still belonged in it, that I wasn't just a shell built for someone else's success. And for the first time in years, I laughed. Not the nervous kind. Not the forced one you give to keep the peace. A real laugh. A laugh that came from a place I thought she'd taken from me. Because I realized something. She didn't break me. She revealed me. I'm not bitter. Not anymore. I'm awake. And that, honestly, is the happiest ending I could have asked for. Thanks for listening to my story. If you've made it this far, I want to hear from you. Have you ever experienced a betrayal that ended up leading you to a better version of yourself? Something painful that changed everything, but in the end, became your turning point? Drop your stories in the comments. I read every one. Let's talk about it. And if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe to Reddit Confessions, where real stories find real voices. Until next time, choose yourself. Always.